Most of the time we're trying to persuade very senior people within organizations, and they really don't want the data. They want the answer. Sometimes it may be in quantitative form, but they're looking for you to kind of advise them on what to do.
Welcome to MRI's Insights and Innovators podcast, where we talk to top market research professionals to get their inside stories about innovative and enduring best practices. Now, here's your host for today's episode.
Welcome to today's episode, Data to Drama, Part 2, Telling Your Story with Kantar's J. Walker-Smith. I'm Z. Johnson, founder of MRXplorer. I'm joined today by veteran public speaker and Chief Knowledge Officer at Kantar, J. Walker-Smith. Walker has spent more than 3 decades studying how to connect data with people and telling compelling stories from the TEDx stage to the boardroom. In Data to Drama Part 1, Walker told us how to create a compelling story with data. In Data to Drama Part 2, Walker shows us how to deliver a great story. Let's start with delivery. Walker, why is the delivery more important than the data itself?
Well, the data are not unimportant, but the data don't matter at all if you can't get the message across. So the data are kind of a necessary condition, but not a sufficient condition for making an impact on the client. And the sufficient condition is delivery. So you've got to have data. You got to have some data. I mean, you have to have some meat on the bones.
Yep.
But if that's all you got, then you haven't done. You still got to cook it. You still got to serve it. And you still got to take it out of the kitchen and put it on the table.
Yeah.
And so, as every chef will tell you, it's just as much about presentation as it is about actually cooking the food.
Yep.
And every cognitive scientist will tell you, your brain is going to interact with your tongue and tell you whether or not you like this food or not, based on the way it looks. And that's exactly the same way with our presentations. Data are not enough. It is all about getting the message across, and that makes delivery very important. Now, sometimes you got clients who are data geeks themselves, and so data may just carry the ball all the way across the goal line. I would say that's 5% of clients, maybe. Most of the time we're trying to persuade very senior people within organizations, and they really don't want the data. They want the answer.
Yeah.
Sometimes it may be in quantitative form, but they're looking for you to kind of advise them on what to do, and that is all about the way you engage them, and that's delivery.
What are some of the common mistakes that you've seen with people, trying to deliver that information?
Well, half the time when researchers present, they look bored with what they're, bored with themselves. It's just kind of like, their eyes are on the floor. They're talking in a low voice. They might have shown up in the room in rumpled clothes. I guess I got a thing about dressing, but I think you want to look the part.
Yeah.
What I say to people is look like you care. Look like you care enough to have gone to a little work to actually do something helpful for the client. Don't come into the room looking like you could care less whether this goes well or not. And I do think there is, a lot of researcher body language. And this is, researchers do care. They do care. But they don't always act like it, and I think this is part of this aversion to inauthenticity. that researchers have. They don't want to do anything that feels inauthentic, and I think that gets carried a little bit too far.
Yeah, that's fair. Let's do a little bit of rapid fire on some of your favorite.
Okay, I got my cheat sheet here.
All right, let's do this.
Okay.
Let's start with eye contact.
Right. So you win the audience with eye contact. Your voice is your most important tool. So it is voice that really gets the message across, but you make the message stick by making eye contact with people. So this is a common mistake that is made in virtual presentations like what we're doing today is people don't understand that most of the time everybody is kind of looking down or they're looking up or they're looking away. They're not actually looking at you. Well, eye contact really matters. That's what
Yeah.
makes it stick. So there are some tricks to eye contact, but if it's a big room, if it's 20 people or more, you need to kind of be looking to the back of the room, sort of about three-quarters, maybe two-thirds of the way to the back of the room, and sort of looking side to side. You're not making eye contact with people, but you're making, as I put it, you're making your eyes available to people so people can
Okay.
find your eyes with their eyes and make some contact. So eye contact is important because that really drives a feeling of connection that people have with you in delivering the message. So my little rule of thumb is make your eyes available, and don't do uncomfortable things like keep looking at the same person in the room. You
Yeah.
know, it's like that person is sooner or later that person's getting their phone out and they're not looking at you anymore.
Yeah.
And don't look at people who are frowning at you. Why would you look at somebody who's giving you negative feedback? So never, don't look twice at a person like that,
Yeah.
and don't stare at somebody so long that they get really uncomfortable. So just kind of, it's the way you want people to act when they're standing up in the front of a room,
Yeah.
and you want to kind of be able to see them eye to eye to make that connection.
Okay. What about hand movement?
Hand movement. So, flappy hands is the most distracting thing you could possibly do, and everybody's got flappy hands. So we're wandering around, and our hands are going, and we're grabbing stuff, or we're rubbing our face, or and I even sit here, I rub my lip all the time. It's the bad thing I do. But our hands are like, they're just like distracting,
Yeah.
it's so anchor your hands. Find something to anchor your hands. Now, I always use notes. So I've always got some notes in my hand. So I just hold on to my notes. I anchor my
Okay.
hand to the notes. I use my notes as a pointer, or something to use for emphasis, but
Yeah.
anchor your hands somehow. And the easiest thing to do is just hold them in front of you and then use them for rhetorical emphasis. But
Okay.
don't have these flappy, wandering hands. They just get cartoonish.
Yeah. Uh, I used to teach a public speaking class, and do you
Yeah.
remember Barney the dinosaur, the
Oh,
big
yeah.
purple?
Oh, yeah.
I
Yes.
used to talk about it as the Barney arms.
That's good. Yeah, that's very good. Right. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Works for a cartoon character.
exactly,
That's about
exactly.
it. Yeah.
How about ending strong?
Ending strong. So yes. So remember, it's the recency effect. So you want to end upbeat. You want to repeat your one thing. You want to inspire people as they leave the room or move out the door. But it's important to make sure that you are reiterating your key takeaway. But you don't want to just kind of finish and collapse. You want to sort of have a way in which you plan to finish,
Yeah,
and it needs to be a little bit structured so that you actually draw things to a close with a point of emphasis.
great. What's your thought on ending with a thank you?
Well, yeah, I thank people at the start profusely, and then I sometimes make fun of myself for doing that. But I do think you want the audience to understand that you really appreciate their time
Hmm.
and really appreciate their attention, and that you are promising that they're going to get something of value for this. But doing it again at the end, I think is a great idea. And if you can get a laugh along the way, thank them for laughing. That'll
Yeah,
make them laugh again. So I think it is just always being appreciative of people giving you some of their time and attention, in a day where they've got a million other things that they could be doing instead of listening to you.
Yeah. Uh, power poses. Let's talk power
Power
poses for a
poses.
second.
So, there was this theory a while back that if you took a power pose, it would transform your mind and, blah, blah, blah. And so we've discovered that that sort of psychological effect really doesn't exist. But it may not be true for you, but it is true for the audience. So the audience wants to see you really, as I refer to it, take possession of the room. They
Okay.
want you to be in control of the moment because they're there to listen to you.
Yeah.
So they don't want you to be meek or mild. They don't want to have to, barely be able to hear you or think that you're acting, too shy in front of the room. Be be really bold
Yeah.
and put yourself out there. Just kind of take control of the moment, and people will do that with varying degrees of comfort and confidence. But the thing to remember is you've been handed, say 50 minutes. People have given you 50 minutes. It's a gift. I'm
Yeah.
giving you a gift. So take the gift and use it and enjoy it and be appreciative of it. But they are handing the room over to you, so you should take control of it and really project yourself.
Yeah. Beautifully said.
That's one of the things that I coach and train people in some of the training I do is because that doesn't come naturally to a lot of people.
No.
So I think it is, and a lot of people get tripped up on that. They're doing something, and then somebody will ask them a hard question, or somebody will get distracted, or somebody will be sitting in the back of the room with a sour look on their face the whole time, and or nobody will say anything. The room will just be dead quiet. And
Yeah.
you learn this through experience, but I found that in dead quiet rooms, I just keep saying to myself, go to the next slide, go to the next slide, just
Yeah.
go to the next slide, just keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. Because I found more often than not, in the dead room where they don't ask any questions and they give you absolutely no body language feedback at all are the ones where they enjoyed the presentation the most.
Hmm.
So sometimes the deadest audience turns out to be the most engaged audience. So don't draw any conclusions about what you're seeing in the room because you're probably going to be drawing the wrong conclusions about what's going on around you.
That's so fair. They're so engaged. They're just like, tell me more.
Right.
Tell me more.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Or they
Yeah.
can be shy.
Yeah.
They might just be really shy and it is,
Yeah.
but they are still remembering your one thing.
Yeah. All right. You have very strong views on Q&A. Tell
Yes.
us why you'd avoid it if possible and how you avoid the Q&A.
Well, I'll say to people, I'm going to talk for 45 minutes. We'll have 15 minutes of Q&A, and then I talk for 57 minutes. So that's the first way to avoid Q&A. Um, most Q&A is kind of trivial. You get asked questions like, "Can I get a copy of the slides?"
Yeah.
Or you get somebody arguing with you about some obscure piece of data back on slide 23, or whatever it is,
Yeah.
or occasionally, I don't mean this in a dismissive way, but occasionally there's a person in the room who really feels like they know more about you than this topic. Sadly, I've discovered occasionally that's true. and and I certainly don't like being asked questions when I'm wrong. But you don't want to get into arguments with people like that. And in fact, I kind of let people who are really trying to show that they are knowledgeable about a topic like that, I let them have the floor. There's
Sure.
no sense in arguing with people. And that is one of my rules is never argue in Q&A. Just never, ever argue. So
Yep.
you may have a very different view than somebody else in the room about the implications of data or how to read a piece of data or what it means or a different interpretation of an example. But don't get into an argument about it. Just say, well, that's actually interesting. I hadn't really thought about that, blah, blah, blah. And
Yeah.
let me think a little bit more about that. And if you don't know the answer to something, just say, people are like, oh, I don't want to say I don't know the answer. You don't know the answer to everything. Just say, hey, that's a really good question. I had never thought of that.
Yep.
So, let me get back to you about that. Or if you've got 5 minutes after, I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about that. Actually, turn a question you don't know the answer to into something that proves you're a person who should be listened to.
Mm,
I do think Q&A just kind of it is a panel discussion is a great thing. You get three experts on a stage, they have a conversation among themselves, it's well moderated.
yeah,
Q&A is not a panel discussion.
yeah.
Q&A is just like a real letdown way to end what might well have been a really good presentation. So I just think it's not the right thing. Follow up is great,
Mhm.
but Q&A I try to avoid at all cost. I'm just now sometimes I can't avoid it, but if I can, I will. And I tell
Yeah.
you, I hate it when I'm on stage and I'm thinking to myself, good, good, good. I'm going to run out of time here. And then the moderator comes up and says, this was really interesting. I'm sorry, we're going to run over. Could we just take 5 more minutes and have a little Q&A? And I'm thinking, damn, my strategy didn't
Didn't
work.
work.
Didn't work. But I think Q&A is hard. It's hard for people to come up with good questions, after you've told them some things that maybe they've never really thought of before. So
Sure.
it's just hard to make that into anything useful.
Yeah. In those moments when it is unavoidable, when the moderator comes on and decides that they're going to extend it because it
Right.
was so good,
Yeah.
how do you handle those situations?
Well, I try to be brief in my answers. If I don't know the answer, as I said, I'll
Hmm.
just say to people, I don't know the answer. And sometimes I'll answer a different question. Sometimes there are other things I wanted to say that I just didn't have time to say. And I might say, that's a really good question. I don't really know the answer to that because I haven't really thought about it in that way. But let me tell you something that's kind of related to that. And then I will just tell people something that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Doesn't have anything to do with the question. But the audience gets some value out of an opportunity that I get to just kind of riff on something else that I just didn't otherwise have time to say.
Gotcha.
But I think the main thing is just to try to be brief. Don't try to give, unlike what I'm doing here in this podcast, don't give long elaborate answers. Just, in a Q&A, try to be brief and try to bring everything back to one thing. That's a really good question, which very much relates to, kind of whatever my main takeaway is. But most people don't like Q&A because they don't want to be asked questions they don't know the answer to.
Sure.
And it's kind of like, when I try to coach people out of that, I say, why is it that you think you ought to know the answer to everything?
Yep.
It's even about this study. So don't be afraid of just saying I don't know,
Yeah.
um, and and promising to do a little bit more homework, to follow it up.
Yeah. So as you close out, what is, to use your phrase, the one thing that you hope people take away from this particular episode?
Well, I would say, just to remind yourself that you are forgettable unless you make yourself memorable. So everything you do in a presentation is designed to make yourself memorable.
Mm.
Don't neglect the fact that you are competing for people's attention. And it's not just other bits of research or other things at work, it's everything going on in people's lives.
Yeah.
You're trying to carve out a little bit of real estate in their head, and the only way you're going to do that is to make yourself memorable. Otherwise, you're forgettable.
Awesome. All right, final question.
Yes.
For someone preparing for a high stakes presentation,
Yeah.
whether it's their first, their 500th,
Right.
what's one thing they can do today to try to be more confident and more impactful?
Well, so it's about one thing. One thing. You got to have one thing.
All
And
right.
then you got to practice. And then you got to practice more. And then you got to practice more. So you need to be delivering that presentation 25 times before you deliver that presentation. You need to memorize the first 5 minutes of things that you're going to be saying. You need where there's a crucial phrase that you want to say, you need to memorize that crucial phrase so that you don't say it in a way that's ambiguous or unclear or incorrect. You need to practice everything important about that presentation, and you need to
Yep.
practice it and practice it and practice it and practice it. And people don't want to do that. They go, I got my deck together. I'll wander in the room. I've looked at the slides, a few times. We'll go from there. Well, that's essentially winging it.
Yeah.
And what do you expect from that?
Yeah.
So, and this is more practice than most people realize. Unless you're like me and have been presenting for more decades than I'm going to admit to, you really can't wing it very well. I'm just telling you, you just can't do it. So practice, 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 and practice. That would be my advice. Rehearse, maybe that's the better word, but it is do
Rehearse
it
it, practice it. Yep.
beforehand. Yeah,
Yep. Well, Walker, thank you for joining us and for
sure. Thank you.
sharing such practical and powerful advice. I really appreciate the one thing. It's given me a new way of thinking about how I put presentations together for sure.
Yeah.
Um, Thank you to our listeners for tuning in to this episode of Insights and Innovators. We hope that you're leaving with a fresh set of ideas and inspiration to make your next presentation more memorable and impactful.
Thanks for joining the Insights and Innovators podcast for Market Research Institute International. Click subscribe to never miss an episode and visit us at mrii.org for more market research insights.